Hi, welcome to Carwood. I'm going to show you how to remove, refit and retime a high pressure common rail pump on a Citroen Relay with a DW12 RUD 2.2 Blue HDi engine. This vehicle is fitted with a Delphi DFP6.1 common rail pump, which operates at a 1:1 engine to pump drive ratio versus a standard 2:1. So if the engine is running at 4,000 RPM, the fuel pump is too, twice as fast as most other pumps. At these ultra high speeds, accurately timing the fuel pump to the engine becomes even more critical. Another difference is that this pump is gear driven. It's driven directly off the engine camshaft via a dedicated gearbox on the opposite side of the engine. So how you remove and refit the pump will also differ. Unlike a regular cam belt driven pump, where you need to remove or loosen off the belt, this pump variant requires you to lock the camshaft prior to removal and whilst installing to ensure the pump drive gear is correctly aligned with the cam box drive gear. This process ensures the correct timing of the common rail pump when installed back onto the engine. Failure to do so can result in excessive engine vibration, EOBD codes related to the fuel system, fuel pump failure and even complete engine failure. Which is why we're going to show you how not only to remove and refit a common rail pump, but also retime it to the engine. Before we get into the specifics of this engine, a few things that you should always do. Wear the correct PPE, including gloves and eye protection. With the ignition switched on, we're going to connect the diagnostic tool and check we haven't got any rail pressure. For the purpose of this video, we're already at 0, so we're safe to open the system. If not, you'll need to initiate a rail pressure bleed to depressurize the system before starting work. The process for doing so varies by system, so always consult the service manual for exact instructions. Once you've confirmed that there's no residual pressure in the system, turn the ignition off and remove the keys from the vehicle. We're going to disconnect the battery negative, which, as this is a van, is in the passenger footwell. Under the bonnet now, we're going to remove as many things as we can to allow easy access to the high pressure pump. Air intake, top and bottom, and engine cover, etc. So we're just going to release these clips so we can remove this pipe off the top of the engine, just unclipping the top coolant hose and putting that to one side to gain a little bit of extra access to the pump. Okay, we're going to remove a couple of fixings here and here so we can then relieve some of the tension on the wiring loom to clear one of the securing bolts on the pump. Okay, we're also going to remove the brake servo vacuum feed. So next stage, we're going to remove the fuel pipes here, and then we're going to cap these off to keep things clean. We're now going to remove the driver's front wheel to gain access to the wheel arch liner and eventually the crankshaft bolt to rotate the engine. So now we've got access to the timing cover, we're going to remove that so we can get to the crankshaft pulley. There is no access panel on this particular engine, so that's the only route we've got to take. We're now going to pivot this bracket, taking the rest of the pipework with it, out of the working area and over to this side here. So we've released some of the clips on the right hand side for the wiring loom, and we're now going to work our way across the top of the engine, removing the injector plugs like so, across the top, and any of the retention for the wiring loom, so hopefully we can move it clear to gain further access. Okay, that's the electrical loom removed as best we can, and we're now going to start removing some of the pipework, starting with these brackets here and here. And there's a third bolt just down here. And it turns out there's yet another bolt holding the tray at this very back corner here. So we're going to go ahead and remove that one. Hopefully this will be the last one. Turns out that wasn't the last one. There's yet another bolt here. I'm not going to tempt fate and say anything else other than we're going to remove that. Okay, working again at the pump, we're now going to remove and disconnect the wiring first of all, and that will enable us to unbolt and remove this cage that's surrounding all the pipework. We're going to disconnect one of the fuel pipes now, removing both ends, and then working it through and away from the high pressure pump. And now we can fully remove it from the engine bay. Okay, we're now going to remove some more of the fuel pipe. To remove these connectors, you pull this center tab up, this little bit that's loose here, we've already preset this one. So pull that tab up, and then you're pressing on the very edge of here, like so, and then that will release. It's the same at the other end on the pump. So we're going to do that now, then all this pipe work can come out. We then also have the leak back, and we've released that and removed that as well. And we're now clear of all the pipe work. Okay, now we can see the common rail, and we can see our high pressure feed in running up here on this bracket to the high pressure pump. So we're now going to undo that and cap the rail. So firstly, we're going to remove the retaining clip. We're now going to disconnect the high pressure pipe from the pump. Remember, PPE at all times for this. So that's the pipe removed, remembering to cap off the rail. Disconnect the high pressure pipe from the pump and discard. These are one-use components, so you should fit new every time the system is opened. Okay, we're nearly at the point of timing everything up, but in order to get the timing belt cover off on this particular engine, we're going to have to remove the engine mount. So we're going to support the engine with a trolley jack and a load spreading device. And then we can remove the timing cover, because at the moment it's obscured by a single bolt there. That's the bolt removed. And now we can remove the timing belt cover. Next, rotate the crankshaft slowly clockwise until the camshaft sprocket timing hole is aligned. Important, never turn the crankshaft anti-clockwise, as it can cause the belt to slacken and jump a tooth. We couldn't actually fit the locking pin at the moment because the rest of the engine mount is actually in the way. So we're going to remove that now. When the holes line up, fit the camshaft sprocket locking tool. Setting the timing, what we've learned are that there are two holes, one of them being larger than the other. We need to be using the smaller hole on the cam sprocket, and it needs to be at approximately 6 o'clock. Back to the fuel pump, disconnect the low pressure fuel supply. If you're working on a car, you may need to remove the turbo boost hose to allow better access to the fuel pump assembly. Remove any retaining clips, bolts that are attached to the fuel pump, which will prevent removal. Then remove the 2 hex head bolts and 1 Torx head bolt. You can now carefully remove the fuel pump from the pump cam box. So we've got the old pump off. We're now going to install the replacement unit in reverse order. We've chosen an OE approved Carwood remanufactured pump, part number DFP6.1. Before installing, check that it's the right part number for the vehicle you're working on. Also ensure the engine camshaft sprocket is still locked in the correct position. As this is an OEM approved remanufactured pump, we have the cover here and we can see the timing is correct before we remove the cover with the notch there and the dot on the wheel. Now remove the plastic protection cover from the drive gear on the pump. So with the cover removed, we can see the timing mark on the housing of the pump and it's in alignment with the sprocket. If the timing marks are off by more than 10 degrees, the pump will need to be returned under warranty. If less than 10 degrees, carefully rotate the pump drive gear clockwise to align the marks. Carwood remanufactured pumps are supplied with pre-fitted O-rings. If your pump isn't, remember to order and install new O-rings. We're now ready to install. Position the fuel pump into the pump gearbox, taking care not to rotate the pump gear. And torque tighten the retaining bolts. It's 20 Newton meters on this pump, but always consult the service manual for the correct torque for the vehicle you're working on. If you've had to, refit the boost hose. In our case, we didn't. Then refit the pipe. Always replace any of the high pressure pipe work. And in this case, we've got a brand new pipe ready to fit. Why do we need to replace it? Because the dome ends of the pipe are designed to deform upon fitment to create a tight seal. Next, reconnect the low pressure supply and return lines. You can now remove the engine camshaft locking tools and rotate the engine manually by 2 full revolutions via the engine crankshaft pulley. If the engine fails to rotate, then stop immediately and recheck procedure. That's the engine rotated 720 degrees without any issues. All that remains now is to refit everything that we removed. On most common rail systems, it's also best practice to bleed or prime the low pressure side in order to remove any trapped air and ensure a consistent supply of fuel when the engine is cranked. This vehicle, however, operates at a constant 5 bar supply pressure and will automatically purge all the fuel lines after fitment, so we don't need to do it. But always consult your service manual to check, as both the need and how to do it will vary by system. We can now reconnect the battery, then start the engine, let it idle. The system pressure should build automatically when the engine is cranked. And there we go, starts up the first time. Let's now go and inspect the engine for any leaks or unusual noises. A hissing sound may suggest a leak. If one is detected, correctly torque tighten, seat or replace fittings before running the engine under load. Finally, use a diagnostic scan tool to check the rail pressure and clear any stored diagnostic fault codes. And that's job done. Thanks for watching, and check out carwood.com/installer-hub for more how-to videos.